Hello and welcome to Redeeming Thunder. I'm here to give you a very important prophetic word, warning actually, and you're not going to want to miss this one. This is for Redeeming Thunder and Daughters of Fire. Given to me on 4/6/2026. This is chapter 78, part 3, and during the prophetic word that when you receive, it's due to an immense connection, divine connection, to alarm you of a halt because you've been in despair. And there's been way too much despair, and the Most High is telling you to stop. He is prohibiting a connection in this hour. And this is the Ordained Spell series, so you need to listen what's happening in this hour. Now, when the Most High is telling you to halt, it means it's with the counterfeit and with the prodigal spouse that does not return. And the reason why the Most High is telling you to halt is because there's some unclean spirits. This could also mean someone that you have believed was your ordained spouse could be also unclean. And the Most High is telling you to cease and desist. Something has occurred during this revolution of time, and they have opened the door to false gods that has caused them to be unclean. Okay, so you need to be aware of this emergency, urgent prophetic word so that you can understand why you need to detach. Okay, you can't be equally yoked with someone that is unclean. When I'm saying unclean is they have evil spirits, demonic spirits inside them. And so if you are equally yoked with that person, those spirits could enter you. Not only that, but let's say you're just interacting with them on earth. Those spirits that are evil are pestering you. They're trying to bring you down. With people that are narcissistic are typically most likely have demonic spirits controlling them. Okay? So during this time, you've been dealing with a lot of sadness and disappointment, and been dealing with a lot of just isolation, pretty much, because you have to be, due to being set apart, and you all have a calling on your life. And sometimes the isolation feels quite lonely. And Most High is removing people from your life. It could also be the ordained spouse that you believed was that person, but he removes them from your life at a certain time frame so that you can awaken to a more deeper revelation of what's for you, actually for you. Okay? Now, let me get into it. I want you to pray Psalms 91, first of all, over your life. And the Most High wants you to bow down. Because during this time, while this is a deep despair for you, the Most High is anointing you for a task. A new assignment is birthing in this hour, and has a lot to do in the department of the arts. So while you do not have to be sulking in despair, and you could be diving into your new assignment. Okay, So the Most High is saying, O ko yi shala sidi ba. Okay, so let me break that down, what that means in Hebrew, because the Most High speaks to me in Hebrew while praying in the Spirit. It means exclamation. That means, like, emergency. Here thus far, a surprise or a shock to send someone or for someone and for something. Okay? To perceive. And he says C means to perceive. D stands for stop or enough. And then ba stands for I'm coming, or it also means coming. Okay. He wants you to cease and desist something. Some interaction that you've had with somebody, he doesn't want you to continue on with that plan. Then he says Allah, which means to ascend. It means Shala, means, it could mean to be in your rest, to trust, to have faith, but it also stands for to send someone for something, or to send someone for someone. Si, Ama, was said 5 times, besides the word Shala that was said 5 times, which means to perceive or to physically see, and he's talking to you as the handmaid who is of marriageable age. And then he says Ah, which means alas, and then he says Allah, la 5 times, which means deny it or prohibit. So there's something that he wants you to stop, or if you've already stopped, to not cave or give into. Okay? And then he says Shala. He says alas, to send someone for someone, and he says that 10 times. Then he says Sholo, Sholo, Sholo 5 times, which means pray for peace. And then he says She, Ama, which she stands for who. Ama stands for handmaid. And then I hear Maya, which means alas, creative miracle, fountain springs. So he's creating a new miracle. Then Sha means SHA with a apostrophe A, to be blinded. It also means, in a positive manner, it means delight, soothing or playful ease, wholesome and delight. In negative sense, it means self-inflicted dullness, that dread in spiritual perception. Possibly that you have self-inflicted blindness. You have been blinding yourself from the truth. You have been seeing something, you've been perceiving something, but you have been refusing to see the truth that's right before you. Probably because you already have feelings for that person. Probably because the Most High has initially said this was going to work out for you, but he's trying to tell you no longer going to work out for you, because a person has unclean spirits. Let me tell you why he said that. So then he says la, to deny, to prohibit, right? And then he says oh, exclamation, which oh means exclamation. Then he says ro, which ro, it's ROED. So RO apostrophe ED means a prophet, he who sees. And then it says Akaya times 5, keeper of the faith. So this is manifesting right now in the month of July. He wants you to cease and desist something. Okay? Like right now. And he says Akaya, alas, jump for joy, keeper of the faith. because you have kept the faith and believed in this ordained spouse union, right? He is going to make it happen for you. This promise still stands. Now he says, "A ko yi," which means, alas, jump for joy. Here, thus far, a surprise, a shock. Then he says, "Ah, she," which means, alas, that which who. She means that, or it means which, or it means who. Okay? So listen, "Ah lima" means, or he said that times 5, which means, alas, jump for joy. Belima means breaking or halting, restraint or defensive action or stopping force. There's a cease and desist, quite literally. And because prior, if you have not received this prophetic word and you're still trusting and you're still hoping on something that the Most High no longer approves for you, you're going to get heartbroken, and you're going to get more heartbroken if you don't obey and receive this warning. You're going to get less heartbroken, and you're going to understand, and you're going to be able to detach, because you're going to be able to not want what the Most High does not want for you anymore once you understand the prophetic word. Okay, so now it says, there's a military defensive action that is stopping something from continuing. Okay? So then the Most High says, "Ah pa," which means, alas, jump for joy, speak forth a cause. He wants you to speak forth something. And then he says, "Ah shalti," which stands shalati. So I had, alas, jump for joy. Shalit, excuse me, is Hebrew 7989, means powerful ruler having authority in civil, social, exponential spheres to rule or dominate. And then T means you. So he's saying you have powerful authority to rule in civil, social, and exponential spheres. So in cosmic powers and in the spiritual realm. And you might be underestimating the power that you have. So then he's saying he wants you to speak forth with command. Okay? And he says, "O ko si ama," which means exclamation, here thus far, to perceive, handmaid. Okay? And then I hear iri, which I heard 10 times. And he says, "Watchful, be vigilant," or an angelic guardian. It also may mean my city or belonging to a city. And it references Benjamin with the verse Chronicles 7:7. This verse states, "King Solomon consecrated the middle of the courtyard in front of the temple to accommodate the overwhelming volume of sacrifices." So the standard bronze altar was too small to hold all the burnt offerings, grain offerings, and the fat of the fellowship offerings. It details the family trees and descendants of the 6 tribes of Israel: Issachar, Benjamin, Naphtali, Manasseh, Ephraim, and Asher. It's referencing Benjamin tribe, so it's talking about the records, the heads of families, listing warriors and notable clans within the tribe. These genealogies serve to help the Israelites who had recently returned from the Babylonian exile understand their heritage, their history, and the tribal lands they were to reoccupy. So the Issachar tribe are descendants of military fighting men of the tribe, noting their significant population growth. Benjamin's tribe were the listing warriors. Naphtali's, they were within Jacob's wife Bilhah. Manasseh's descendants of Manasseh include their Aramean concubine and the birth of Gilead. Ephraim's descendants notably mentioned in Joshua, who led the Israelites into the promised land, and a generational family tragedy involving the death of Ephraim's sons. Asher concludes with the family line of Asher, listing his sons, grandsons, their mighty. Let me read 2 Chronicles 7:7 in context. And King Solomon offered a sacrifice of 22,000 heads of cattle and 120,000 sheep and goats. So the king and all the people dedicated the temple of Yahuwah. The priests took their positions, as did the Levites, with Yahuwah's musical instruments, which King David had made for praising Yahuwah, and which were used when he gave thanks, saying, "His love endures forever." Opposite the Levites, the priests blew their trumpets, and all the Israelites were standing. Solomon consecrated the middle part of the courtyard in front of the temple of Yahuwah, and there he offered burnt offerings and the fat of the fellowship offering, because the bronze altar he had made could not hold the burnt offering, the grain offering, and the fat portions. So Solomon observed the festival at the time for 7 days, and all Israel with him, a vast assembly, people from Lebo Hamath to Wadi of Egypt. On the 8th day they held an assembly, for they had celebrated dedication of altar for 7 days and festival for 7 days more. Now let's read the commentary. Moreover, Solomon hollowed the middle of the court. So, as mentioned, is made in 2 Chronicles 7:9 of the dedication of the altar, as if distinct from the dedication of the house, and the hollowing middle of the court, in imitation of which the heathens dedicated their altars, in which they used ashes and water, relates, and had also feasts as here at the dedication of their temples, in which they had been imitated by Christians. And many of our country feasts, as they all are called, were first kept at the dedication of churches to such and such a saint. So something's going on where King Solomon has been meddling with customs that the pagans, the heathens, the witches would do. So he has several wives that are of different nationalities, who have different customs, and he had married them purposefully to gain power and authority over certain demonic creatures. Okay? And although he was doing this all for the Most High, Yahuwah, he was also binding these demonic creatures in his dungeon. And he had this sacred ring that had magical powers, and he would receive advice from all of his wives who had been worshiping other deities, of how to cast certain spells over certain demonic creatures. And although he had built an enormous, glamorous temple for the Most High, that he wanted to please the Most High so abundantly, he had used a demonic creature that looked like a worm to chisel out these sculptures. He had commanded it to create these masterpieces, to create an extravagant palace and temple for the Most High and for himself. So in other words, he was meddling and serving the Most High. At the same time, he was serving these deities, these false gods, these demonic creatures. Okay? And you're going to be like, what in the world? Why and how? So, what the Most High is saying right now is either your ordained spouse has meddled in some kind of ritualistic occult-like practice, beliefs and customs, and or the counterfeit and or the prodigal spouse who does not return has done such. And that is why he's calling a cease and desist. So in other words, you're thinking like, how did this happen? It's not always that they go and they become a warlock and they're doing all these spells and with some kind of cauldron, and they're just doing these little warlock witchy hand gestures. It's not always like that. Okay? Sometimes it becomes where they're very much so intrigued by knowledge and wisdom, just like King Solomon was. And that's what he desired. He didn't say, please give me riches. He said, please give me wisdom. That he didn't use high discernment, and he was craving wisdom and knowledge so much that he didn't care under what roof he got it from. So he was asking the Most High for wisdom and knowledge, yet then he would also ask the witches, which were his wives. He would also ask the magicians. He would also go in his dungeon and speak to the demonic creatures and ask them questions of how to do this and how to do that. Okay? So, in other words, this can come through as those people manifesting, or they could have opened the door through spiritism, getting into spiritism, where those who delve in using wind, fire, water. Okay, right here is talking about, this commentary is talking about they were using ashes and water to concoct some kind of spell or some kind of spiritual weird manifestation with their altar or something. Okay, so some people could have opened the door through studying scholars, who those scholars, such as DeMartini, I believe his name is John DeMartini, he has a vast amount of knowledge, and he speaks about things that are very positive, like having a positive mindset, and being grateful. And then he starts speaking about manifesting in one's life. Okay, kind of like The Secret. Okay, and you think, oh, these are just positive affirmations. What's wrong with that? When you dig a little deeper of what that entails, where DeMartini is gathering his insight is through 2 Egyptian deities. Okay, which I'm going to put in a picture with a little bit of info in this video. And it has to do with the dog face man. Okay, and some other weird Egyptian creature like thing. And so they have some insights that sound positive on the outside looking in, but overall, back in the day, Bible times, people actually worshipped these deities that were walking around on earth, that had a dog head, quite literally, had a hawk face or whatever. Okay, and they're just walking around town, and they're just like people are praising them and worshiping them like if that's their God. Okay, so that is where the philosophy of DeMartini is coming from. And it's not coming from the Bible, from what the Most High stated in his commandments. And okay, it's coming from, it's rooting from another source of where their knowledge and wisdom is coming from, which what King Solomon did as well. And at the end of the day, then he entrapped himself, because he entrapped many demons in his dungeon with his ring. And at the end of the day, he trusted upon these stones, or he trusted upon he valued the wisdom and knowledge from those demonic powers, and he put him at the same pedestal as the Most High, and maybe decided to skip the Most High, and he blinded himself. Do you see what I'm saying? And he decided to just focus on whatever the demonic deities could share. When you open the door to things like that, a lot of the time it could be where that person becomes or has unclean spirits. So the Most High is saying there's an angelic guardian watching over his city. You are considered a city. Okay? And he's saying she, D. Okay? So he's saying she is standing for Shadim, which means false gods or spirits. Also could mean genies, poltergeists, or mischievous spirits or demon spirit. And he's saying, enough. Stop. Okay? And you're like, wait a minute. Did you just say genies and demon spirits? Yes, I did. Not me. Ruach HaKodesh told me. So then he says, A laka sana tov. So, alas, jump for joy, to take into marriage, to change, to repeat. That's what sana means. In this revolution of time, he is changing the person that he once sent you. He's not having that. He's halting. He's restraining that person to pursue you. And you're wondering, why doesn't he just pursue me? I thought this was a match made in heaven. Because he opened the doors to certain things in his own personal life, and it has opened the doors to evil spirits. And you cannot be equally yoked with someone that has opened the door to evil spirits. Okay? And so he's saying, be in thanksgiving. Tov means be in thanksgiving to the Most High, that he's alerting you of this. And this is confirmation word now in the month of July, for it to manifest, where it all comes full circle now of why the Most High has done a change and sending you someone else. Okay? And there has been confirmation in the real world through this other woman that has brought it to my attention that she has been notified that the individual that she believed was the ordained spouse, and then had communicated with her, and he had mentioned something that was kind of fishy, and he started referring himself to we, as in he's like plural, like a multiple personality type. And that kind of struck a chord there, as she knew she had to be watchful. And he referenced himself kind of like a chameleon, which kind of, she thought it was first an analogy or a metaphorical story. but realizing then that there is an unclean spirit there. That he also, in other conversations prior, had mentioned he had opened the door to other wisdom and knowledge from other sources besides the Bible. Okay? So it was all the more confirming in July that there needs to be a detachment. And it's no fault of your own. I know you were praying for the individual, but again, everybody has their own self-will. Okay? And if one wants to be blinded from the truth, one wants to blind themselves from their sin, it's their choice. All right? Now the Most High says, exclamation, because it says, oh, Maya, 5 times, exclamation, sudden miracles, creative miracles going to occur. So he's creating a new relationship, an ordained spouse for you. Connection. And then he says, Shama, Shama, Shama. Okay, so that 2 times, which means he wants you to listen and obey, to understand with action. Okay, and meanwhile, he still wants you to dance. Meanwhile, he still wants you to practice and partake in your new assignment while all of this is happening in the background. So stay tuned, because the Most High is going to be delivering you from the false ordained spouse that has went astray and is following different deities. And then he's going to be bringing you your new ordained spouse. Okay? And he's going to be bringing them soon now. In the month of July and August, you're going to be noticing something fabulous happening in your life. Shalom.